As we approach the end of Season 2 of Apple TV Plus's The Morning Show, I thought it was the perfect time to share some thoughts about ongoing plots from this season and possibly make a prediction or two. The Morning Show has a habit of leaving us with a sense of ambiguity, so I doubt we're going to get all the answers we're hoping for to these questions in the last episode. But with a spoiler warning in place, let's jump in. Maggie Brenner's book. This has probably been the main ongoing thread throughout the season, and it seems now, after Bradley's takedown of Maggie in her scathing interview, that we aren't likely to see any earth-shattering revelations beyond the fact that Alex and Mitch slept together, which we already knew. So I think I was reaching too far when I thought Lizzie's paternity might be called into question. I do wonder though if Maggie Brenner's source might still be revealed. We know that it wasn't Mitch, but perhaps Paige, his long-suffering wife, saw it as an opportunity to get back at Alex. And any wrongdoing could also be put firmly at Fred's feet. This storyline may have reached its peak in the last episode and we might not hear another word. Certainly Alex's desperate claim that if you me up, you're going to up our whole country does seem even more OTT now than it did then. COVID. This season has teased us with COVID from the very first episode, opening with a long montage of shots of empty New York streets. And that first episode gave us a strong indication that COVID was going to be a major plot point. And it still could be, but we've waited long enough for it. Remember when Daniel was forced to quarantine for 2 weeks in Beijing, then Mitch and Paula did the same in Italy, and the professor Paula interviewed died? Otherwise, though, COVID has mainly remained in the background, almost as some sort of grim joke, without any serious, direct consequences for the people in the TMS world. All that changed at the very end of episode 9, when Alex woke up in the hospital to learn she had COVID. And we were told earlier in the episode that Laura wants to escape to Montana to reduce her risk because of a heart condition that we've just heard about. But Alex and Laura had been in close contact throughout their day at TMS. It could be ironic, given that they have finally managed to bury the hatchet, if Alex has passed the virus to Laura in doing so. In my review of episode 1, I did wonder if someone might die from COVID and predicted then that it might be Daniel, but in fact, it's only his plotline that seems to have died so far. I'm sorry for everyone who is team #BradleyLaura, but that heart condition really points towards the demise of Laura, which would land them squarely in the kill the gays trope territory. On the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if savvy showrunners might leave that as a cliffhanger so that they could gauge how the Bradley-Laura storyline landed and whether they want Margulies to come back for a potential third season. Alex inadvertently killing Bradley's woman would certainly create more fireworks for their already unstable relationship. Mitch's interview footage. Alex gave a powerful speech at Mitch's memorial, wanting to share that he was really trying to understand the effects of his actions and that he wanted to be better. Although Alex was criticised on Twitter for having any contact with him at all, we know that Paula's interview footage, in which Mitch gave the impression that he was indeed actually remorseful, is still out there, and I'd be surprised if this doesn't make its way online too. Alex shared her promise that she made to Mitch about helping Paula with her career, so perhaps Alex will be instrumental in releasing that footage. We also know that Paula loves an underdog, and it could be in her own best interests to try and save Alex's reputation by getting the footage out there. Bradley's family. Hal didn't end up in rehab and returned Bradley's money, so presumably we haven't heard the end of that storyline, and it will almost certainly waste some airtime in the final episode. Perhaps Bradley will be forced to choose between Hal and Laura in some kind of double medical emergency, OD versus COVID heart condition. Corey's big Bradley betrayal. Will Corey's duplicitous nature be revealed this season, or is it a ticking time bomb for season 3? We certainly have seen much less of their deep and meaningful friendship in the latter half of the season, and how much can they really hit Bradley with in this final episode? She certainly seems to be in the firing line for some pain though, and Corey is due some kind of emotional break with all that stress and denial he's carrying around. This season also introduced several new characters and failed to use some of the characters they already had. Does the name Allison ring a bell to anyone? So here are my top 3 underused characters who only have one episode left to make some real impact. At number 3 is the handsome but pointless Ty, who reports on social media for TMS. I thought there was going to be some romantic relationship between him and Alex, but that never came to fruit. Was he brought in just to remind us of the powers of socials this season? Because he has performed absolutely no plot function whatsoever. At number 2, At number 2, Eric, Alex's replacement that quickly moved to Evening News. Hasan Minhaj seemed like a relatively big name to waste big money on for no substantial impact. And at number 1, the top spot for most criminally underused has to be Holland Taylor as Sybil, the elusive director of the board. It does seem possible, though, that she could come into her own in the final episode as things start to shut down and affect the bottom line, and maybe someone will get fired. And finally, some quick-fire, loose threads, red herrings and unanswered questions that may or may not get picked up in this final episode. UBA Plus. Corey has spoken about this several times, even appearing on a chat show to talk about it. Stock prices. There was a lot of background chat about stock prices going up and down in the early episodes, and we know that COVID has a huge impact on stock prices. These two threads could certainly be linked together. Alex's own book. We've heard so much about Maggie's book, but remember, Alex had just finished writing her own book at the start of episode 1. Where did that go? Corey, Fred, and the payoff. That was used by Fred to get his way for one episode and then it vanished. Could it make a reappearance? The Hannah lawsuit. This popped its head back up last week when we found out that Claire was covering the father's costs. Will there be any resolution to this? Will we find out who, Fred, leaked the footage of Alex's eulogy? Will Isabella become a three-dimensional character? What happened between Stella and Daniel in his dressing room that left Daniel looking so bereft? What exactly helped Alex's back pain in the end? What is going to happen to Yanko? So plenty to have us tuning in for the final episode of Season 2. Please do like, subscribe and hit the bell to see my final recap and review next week. And I hope you'll share your predictions, queries and questions in the comments below. Let's keep talking telly.